My name is Michael, and I run a paranormal website dedicated to urban legends and paranormal rumors in Buncombe County. It's not a popular site by any stretch of imagination, but it gets a fair amount of attention. The emails that I like, I'll post a story and visit the site mentioned in the email. Then I post my follow-up investigation a few days later after the original post. I receive a couple of stories each month, most of them tied to ghost stories or obviously made-up tragedies. One email, however, caught my attention. A few days ago, I received an email from a person named Bon Kobom that was simply titled The Second House. An odd name, as it's not inherently scary or off-putting, but I review everything that I'm sent. I'll summarize the contents of the story. Around 1865, a family, the Hanagees, had built a manor on 10 acres of land just outside the city limits of Asheville. The land in question was mainly woods, except for a small area that contained a manor. There is another structure, much smaller and plainer, that exists somewhere in the woods as well, used for ritual sacrifices, or so the story claims at least. The Hanagees had performed several of these aforementioned sacrifices in this building, both human and animal in nature. They were only discovered several years after the construction, when concerned parents came calling for their missing daughter, who they knew their friends with were one of their sons. The father, Ralph Hanagee, the mother, Mary Hanagee, their two sons, David and Sam Hanagee, and daughter, Sarah Hanagee, were all convicted for the murder of the three women. People claim that there are numerous other bodies buried on that property that the authorities haven't or refuse to discover. People say that you can still hear the screams of the victims when the wind blows just right, and that the bloodstains are a permanent reminder of the horrors that took place in that house. There is a slight problem, however. No one really knows if this second house even exists. It's all just rumors and speculation. The reason this submission caught my eye was that I've heard of the Hanagee hauntings. Over the course of several emails, they emailed me some audio and video files of different paranormal investigations of the site, as well as several links to various articles. As far as I can tell, this story might actually have some merit. The articles claimed that the police had raided the manor, and it was just deemed perfectly ordinary. Nothing was mentioned about devil worship or ritual sacrifices. Bodies, however, were definitely found on the premise. The Hanagees claiming they were accidental deaths due to the victim's own fault. There seems to be a legitimate paranormal activity happening in the other files too, but it's all too easy to fake this kind of stuff these days. Some poltergeist activity in one video, a shadowy figure in another, and spooky noises and voices in the audio files. I'll admit it though, I was hooked, even if I was a bit skeptical. The lure of a good mystery and possible ghost encounters were too strong. I decided to post a story and head out to check out the estate myself over the weekend. I had received special permission from the mayor to stay on the property for that weekend. So waiting for me when I arrived in the morning was a police car and a slightly annoyed officer. He told me that the property was safe, and as far as he could tell, there wasn't anyone living on or around the premises. After handing me the keys to the manor, he informed me that he'd be back on Monday to check in on me and make sure that I was still alive and in one piece. He also made sure that I knew, in no uncertain terms, that this was a huge waste of his time and mine. I don't know why you're even bothering to check this place out. The only thing you're gonna find is tetanus and mold in here. People have been searching these woods for decades and never found so much as a doghouse. What makes you think that you're different from anyone else and that you will find it? Man, well, when you finish having a sleepover with Bigfoot, I'll be here waiting for your stories about how this guy was actually just misunderstood and that he really enjoyed finger painting. I just glared back at him. Freaking douche. He gave a shake of his head, threw his hands up and walked back to his car. Right before he closed the car door, I managed to stammer out, Bigfoot doesn't exist, wise ass. Ha, got him. As he drove away, I took in the scene. It was a cloudless day, sunny day, almost cheery. There was a slight breeze and the temperature was moderate. This all clashed directly with the manor itself, a massive 3-story Victorian mansion straight out of a horror movie. Most of the windows seemed to be boarded up or busted out. Only a few flaky black shutters remained attached. Even those were just barely hanging on. The exterior was faded light green, the paint peeling from centuries of neglect. The roof looked as if it was covered in ash and had numerous holes dotted throughout. Weather vanes were bent at a sharp angle or broken in two. To complete this ominous image, there was an iron finial trident fence surrounding the manor's lawn, with a large front gate to enter through. The entrance had the heading that's read, Hanagee Manor, and it was covered with cobwebs. I see why this place had a reputation for being haunted. It certainly looked the part. Another thing I noticed about the whole scene was the lawn. It was perfectly maintained up until about 10 feet from the house itself. The grass and weeds were almost as tall as the first floor windows. It was as whoever cut the grass refused to actually go near the place. The place actually gave me the creeps, and that was saying something. I stuck a large crude iron key into the front gate's lock and entered the premises. As I walked closer to the front door, out of the corner of my eye, I saw curtains move slightly, as if someone had moved them aside to peer out at me. Impossible. At least that's what I told myself. After a heavy sigh and some self-scolding, I walked up to the dilapidated steps, carefully avoiding the holes strategically placed to twist ankles, and unlocked the front door with a smaller, more intricate key. I stuffed both keys back into my jean pocket and opened the door. The door made a predictable, ominous squeal as it swung open. I stepped inside, ready to begin my investigation. Now, I know this house is not the focus of the trip, but if you're going to do something, do it thoroughly. That's what I tell my friends during dinner anyway. As I walked through the door, most people would tell you the smell and they would notice first, but not me. I can't smell. So to me, 3 things stuck out to me. The first thing that I noticed was just how old the place looked and felt. It was as if the place was stuck in the 1800s and had outright refused to move forward with the rest of the world. The walls were covered with a sickly yellow, floral pattern wallpaper of ages past. A massive chandelier hung overhead the entrance, cobwebs engulfing the candle's arms and main body. There were twin, carved staircases on opposite sides of a gigantic fireplace leading up to the second floor. The spokes in between the railings and steps were also covered in cobwebs. I've said the word cobwebs too many times now, I feel. Just know that this shit is everywhere and on everything. With the way this house was looking, I was surprised to see that there wasn't, never mind. There is. A suit of armor, complete with a sword, stood in the corner guarding a nearby window from any feline intruders. How cliche can this place get? The second thing I noticed was just how much natural sunlight was entering into the manor. It was almost like having the lights on. You could clearly see the dust particles floating around from where I had walked. This all means that the noise and outside light contamination was very likely, and dust particles could be mistaken for orbs. Any haunting here would be very hard to prove. The final thing I noticed was the lack of any personal paraphernalia. No pictures, no tapestries, no furnishings of any sort besides the armor. There wasn't even a welcome mat, as if they built the place just to rot empty and abandoned. The floor groaned and squeaked loudly as I moved to the spot that I thought I saw movement earlier. Just as I thought, the breeze from outside was occasionally making the curtains flutter slightly. No ghosts here. I wish I could say that the rest of the house was interesting or that something unusual happened, but that would be a lie. Well, I did manage to get a shallow cut on my palm from the staircase. That was nothing to worry about though. The sun was starting to set by the time I finished looking the house over. Sensing no weird energies at this point, I decided to go to my car and gather my camping supplies. Phase 1 was complete. Time for Phase 2. Phase 2 was scouting the woods at night. With 10 acres of land to scout over, this was not going to be easy. I always come prepared though. I had a compass, plenty of food and water, a flashlight with extra batteries, and my ghost hunting equipment. Oh, and my hunting knife, just in case. This was no clear entrance to the woods located behind the manor, so I just picked a random spot and started walking. The trees were just typical pines and oaks, nothing too spooky or foreboding about them. About a half a mile in, I checked my compass to make sure I was still headed west towards the center of the woods. I was on the right track, so I decided now would be a good time to try and record an EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, or maybe detect an EMF, electric magnetic field. I pulled out the EMF detector and received not a peep. No noises, no lights, nothing. I put that away and pulled out my digital recorder. I asked the standard questions like, who is there? Who is here? How did you die? What's your name? Etc. After listening back and hearing nothing but the sound of my own voice and the local incense, I gave up. I gave a sad sigh. Maybe I hyped myself up for nothing. I put the recorder away as well, hoisted my bag back onto my shoulders and kept walking. Now I know I said that the woods weren't spookier earlier, but that was when I could somewhat see. Now that the sun had set, the whole vibe of the place had changed. I fumbled for my flashlight, took it out of my side pouch, and quickly switched it on, shining the beam somewhere as fast as I could spot any potential threats. Just trees and rocks. I was being silly, working myself up over rumors. My hand was beginning to bother me now, but I paid it no mind. A little pain wouldn't kill me. I checked my watch. It was 9:36 p.m. I had been walking for almost 2 hours now. I let my bag drop from my shoulders to the ground and took out my thermals and 3 oatmeal cakes. Halfway through the second cake, I could have sworn I heard a voice in the distance. I froze mid-bite. The line about the wind on the voices came to mind. With my mouth full, I managed to say, hello? Who's there? With no reply. I waved the flashlight beam near the arcs in the direction where I thought I heard the voice. A face, a freaking face was just visible behind a tree 100 feet away. I almost choked to death right there. Down in the remains of my water and gasping, I struggled to my feet and unsheathed my knife from my side. I concentrated the light where the face had been, but it was gone. I was visibly shaken now. Oh shit, the rumors were real, this place is haunted. Despite every instance in my body screaming for me to run away, I approached the tree. I just had to make sure. As I drew near, I raised my knife and jumped to the other side of the tree. Freeze! I yelled at the empty space in front of me. I put my knife away and slammed my now free hand against the tree in frustration, which reopened my cut, casting more pain and fresh blood to flow. I gave a yelp of pain. This is freaking ridiculous. Why am I even out here still? I walked back to my bag to grab some bandages, but it was gone. The bag was simply not there. Oh shit. This is too much. I ran my good hand through my hair, barely holding back tears. Someone was out here with me and I'm in danger. All I had left now was my light and my knife. It hurt to hold the flashlight, however, and the blood was starting to flow more freely from my heart getting worked up, adding to the difficulty of holding it. I growled, "Ugh, the hell with this, I'm done," and sprinted towards what I hoped was east. It was difficult not to trip on rocks and roots in my frenzied escape, and I managed to fall a few times. Suddenly, I can hear the sounds of something or someone moving at a fast pace as well somewhere behind me, but I was not gonna look. I couldn't look. I tried several turns and zigzags, but the sound of running was always constantly behind me, just dozens of feet away. "Leave me alone!" I shrieked. Fear was making my voice crack. Tears were blurring my vision now. I was fleeting on almost pure instincts, hardly seeing where I was going. My chest was heaving now, my sides screaming in agony. This is it, I thought. It's over. I was slowing down, not by much, but definitely slowing down. As I made another sharp turn, wheezing and flailing, I fell off a small cliff. I gave a sharp cry into the night as I fell some 10 feet down, landing hard on my feet. I twisted my ankle severely, making me bellow in pain. I quickly threw my hand over my mouth, dropping my flashlight. I tucked my knife in between my armpit and cut the light off, leaving myself in total darkness. The sounds of the forest, the ones, cicadas, crickets, owls, etc., they were gone. A ringing silence enveloped me. It was only ruined when I heard shuffling footsteps above me. I almost passed out from fear. I shut my eyes as tightly as I could and silently prayed to every god in existence. Oh God, please let me make it through the night. Let me live, please. The shuffling footsteps continued on down, closer to me, and closer, and closer. The footsteps stopped mere feet away from me, just outside of my vision. Thank God the cliff face was just deep enough to hide me from plain sight. I clamped my hand even harder over my nose and mouth, barely allowing a thin stream of air to exit my nostrils. I was shaking so bad I thought the rattling of my bones would give me away. Surely the sound of my heart hammering against my ribcage would give me away. But then, the worst noise of all happened. A deep, animal-like grunt came from the stranger. One of frustration and anger, it seemed. It was so freaking close. I peed myself. I hoped beyond hope that the stranger wouldn't smell it. Suddenly, a howl burst from the stranger, almost causing me to scream. It ran off into the night, away from me. I couldn't believe it. I was alive. Hurt, but blessedly alive. I thanked every god that I could think of, promising every one of them to devote myself to him. After several long, intense minutes, I found myself able to move again. I can walk, but barely. Then I made the dumbest decision. I picked up my flashlight and knife and then started walking back the way that I came. I had no idea where I was going. I just knew I had to move. I had to get out of here. I moved at a snail's pace as I was trying to make little as noise as possible, and my ankle was far from stable. I looked at my watch again. 1:19 a.m. It was going to be a long night. After stumbling through the woods for what felt like forever, I saw a light peering around some trees. I quickly ducked behind a nearby rock. "Michael?" I heard a male voice shout. "Who in God's name know that I'm out here?" The voice came again. "Michael, are you here? It's me, Bunko Bum. Where are you?" Holy shit, it's a miracle. I staggered out from behind the rock, waving my light. "I'm right here," I managed weakly to reply. Then I fell to the ground, my ankle shrieking with agony and my hand feeling numb. As my light traveled over to him, it revealed a lean but muscular man, bald with a neatly trimmed goatee. He was wearing a dirty flannel shirt and ripped jeans. He sprinted over to me. "Oh, thank God. When you didn't answer any of my texts, I thought something happened to you. Turns out I was right." He bent over, picked me up, and put my arm around his neck and then his arm behind my back. I was saved. I groaned. "Ugh. We need to get out of here now." "What happened to you? Did you see something? Did you see the house? Did you run into one of the Hanagees? What? Stop talking. Just move. We gotta get out of here." I didn't have enough energy to reply to his questions. He clearly wanted to keep asking more, but refrained. After we'd been walking for several minutes, he began to talk again. "Man, I can't believe that I stumbled upon you. You're so lucky. Who knows what would have happened to you if I didn't show up when I did. The woods can be a dangerous place, you know." My brain wasn't running at full capacity. but I could still pick up on the weirdness of the situation. It really was lucky he found me, and why would he be trying to text me? It wasn't adding up for some reason. While I was lost in thought, he tripped over some exposed roots. He fell, dropping me as well, and gave off a loud grunt, an animal-like grunt, a familiar grunt. A cold realization flooded me, and a deep chill ran down my spine. I gave a sharp intake of air, which I was able to disguise as pain, thankfully. My whole body was on full alert now. Sorry about that. I must have missed the route there. He gave a light chuckle and propped me up again. I weakly smiled and replied, No worries, man. It's dark. He gave me a nod of appreciation and we continued walking. The manor was just now visible beyond the tree line. Ah, sweet. We're almost back, he said cheerfully. I'm gonna take you inside and let you rest while I call the cops for you. I gave the tiniest nods. Who was he fooling? He wasn't gonna do that. He was gonna kill me in there. Just as we were approaching the tree line, he stumbled again, this time knocking me over, sending me sprawling to the ground, flashlight and knife flying out of my hands and into the darkness. Ah, whoops, my bad, he said as if he merely bumped into me in the crowd. He picked me up and led me towards the house and away from my protection. He opened the door and led me to the stairs, put me down gently. All right, there you go, bud. Now, I'll be back. Don't you move. He chuckled to himself and walked upstairs and out of sight. I closed my eyes. Oh my God, I've been an idiot. This whole thing was a trap just to get me killed. There were no sacrifices, no ghosts, no second house. Just a crazy asshole who gets off killing innocent people. I slowly stood up, trying my best to avoid any noise. I managed to get halfway across the floor when I heard, Hey, where are you going? I turned around to see him standing on top of the staircase, above the fireplace, his arms draped over the railing. He had a friendly, curious look on his face, like he was talking to a drunk friend. My mind raced. I was just testing out my ankle, man. It still hurts a lot, and I don't know if I can just walk on it just yet. I lied about the last part. I could walk and would. He seemed to really take pleasure in the last part, as he gave a wide smile and said, Come on up here, man. There's a bed you can rest on while we wait. The cops should be here soon. He turned and walked away. I thought to myself, there ain't shit up there but my death. I looked around desperately for something to use, anything. Then I remembered it. The sword. Oh my God, the freaking sword. I leaned over to the suit. It was just about my size too. I had an idea. Several minutes later, the man reappeared, seemingly agitated now. Mike, man, you need some rest. If you can't make it up the stairs, then all you have to do is ask for help. Then I'll just come and get you. He made his way down the staircase, using the moon and stars as a light to guide him. He froze at the bottom of the stairs, looking around slowly. Michael? I could see him turning around in circles trying to locate me. Then I saw him bring an object that looked like a knife to his chest upright. I can't help you if you don't let me, Michael, he cooed softly. Michael, as he wandered around the room, he kept softly calling for me, telling me that he would hate for something bad to happen to me. He neared the suit of armor, stopped and looked at it. As his gaze traveled up and down it, he seemed to notice something around the hips. He gazed more intently. What the I didn't let him finish. I thrust the unarmored hand into his eyes and smeared my blood palm all over his face and eyes. He let out a yell of shock and confusion. He swung his knife wildly in a blind panic, but he missed by several feet. Then I let out a war cry and drove the sword straight towards his chest. The sword went in easily than I expected. The excursion caused him to fall to the ground, my ankle unable to support all of the new weight anymore. He let out a gasp of pain and dropped the knife. With his eyes wide, he stared into the massive armor, the armor I was in, and I stared back. He crumbled to the ground, clenching the sword that now lodged in his chest as the life drained out of him. I laid there beside him, letting everything that happened finally set in. After I was able to scrap myself together mentally, I looked over to see if he was still alive. Blank, green eyes stared back at me. A part of me almost wanted to find my digital recorder and see if his spirit was still around. Almost. I exited the suit and limped out to my car. It cranked without hesitation. Seems like he didn't expect me to make it out alive. I drove back to town and filed a police report and was promptly sent to the hospital. A week has passed since then. The police had told me the guy's name was Randy Thorpe, a suspected serial killer now proven. The investigation of the house led to the discovery of a false wall behind the fireplace. There were about 5 bodies total stuffed in there. Women and men, different ages and races, but all were amateur paranormal researchers. Turns out that cop from before is actually a pretty nice guy. Just a little prejudice when it comes to ghost cryptids. His name is Parker, and he let me keep the helmet as some sort of macabre trophy, but not the rest of the armor or the sword because it's considered evidence. I'm seeing a therapist now, and she suggested that I retell the story as a coping mechanism. Maybe after recounting this so many times, it'll become normal. It hasn't worked. I steer here howls at night, see intruders in the shadows, and my dreams are haunted by those dead green eyes. I don't think I'll ever be free from this nightmare, but I do know one thing for sure. I'll never go searching for ghosts again.
Oh my God. Michael.
Good evening, everyone. This is Yeti K, and this is the end of the video. Please leave a comment and let us know your opinions on the matter. If you happen to like this content, please check out our other videos. Make sure you like and share amongst your friends and family to help our community grow. You happen to be new to this channel? Please make sure you subscribe. It's free, and you can always change it in the future. You have some terrifying story suggestions? If so, make sure that you send it to my email, fearofthedarkstories@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in a future segment. But you guys stay safe out there, and remember to always be afraid of the dark.